Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into something I know a lot of you are interested in, English, and how it connects to career success.
Sounds good.
We've got a really insightful discussion here, all about practical advice for English learners.
Yeah.
People who are thinking about how their English skills can boost their career.
Right.
So we'll unpack all of that.
Absolutely.
And see what kind of gems we can uncover. So are you ready to unlock the power of English for your career?
Let's do it.
All right, let's dive in. All right, so the source right off the bat mentions English being a global bridge, especially when we look at things like multinational companies.
Okay.
But how does that really translate into, better career opportunities?
Well, when you think about it, English proficiency can give you a real competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you work with international clients, collaborate on global teams.
Right.
And even helps you kind of stay ahead of the curve by understanding industry trends from all over the world. So all of these things can make you super valuable in the job market.
That makes total sense. But the source also mentions that not every job requires perfect fluency.
Right.
What are some examples where English might not be the main priority?
Yeah, you're right. Fluency isn't everything.
Right.
Like take technical fields, for example. A machine operator or a mechanic might not need to give presentations in English.
Right.
Their technical know-how is really what matters.
Yeah.
Same goes for skilled trades like carpentry or plumbing, where hands-on ability is key.
Yeah.
And of course, in creative fields like the arts,
Yeah.
your portfolio and talent speak for themselves.
Absolutely. So there are definitely paths to success where English might play a smaller role.
For sure.
But what about those situations where I is important, like job interviews?
Right.
The source really emphasizes confidence over perfect grammar. Do you think that's realistic?
Oh, absolutely. Employers are often looking for candidates who are enthusiastic, articulate, and eager to contribute. Think about it from their perspective. They want someone who can communicate effectively, even if their grammar isn't perfect.
Right.
Someone who comes across as confident and engaged is much more likely to make a good impression.
I see. But what if you're nervous about making mistakes or not being understood? I mean, do the experts offer any tips for dealing with those interview jitters?
They do, and it all comes down to preparation and practice.
Okay.
They recommend practicing common interview phrases beforehand, so you feel more comfortable during the conversation.
Right.
Also, pay attention to your body language.
Okay.
Sitting up straight, making eye contact, and smiling can convey confidence, even if you're a little nervous.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to speak clearly
Yeah.
and at a pace that allows you to think and articulate your thoughts.
That's great advice. But what about those moments where you just don't understand something?
Sure.
Is it okay to ask for clarification during an interview?
It's not only okay, it's encouraged.
Oh.
Asking for clarification shows that you're attentive and eager to learn.
Yeah.
It demonstrates that you're willing to take the initiative to ensure clear communication,
Right.
which is a valuable skill anywhere.
That's a relief to hear. So let's say someone wants to start actively improving their English for their career.
Okay.
What kind of practical advice does the source offer for busy learners who might not have a lot of time for traditional language classes?
The source has some great tips
Yeah.
for incorporating English learning into your daily routine, even if you only have a few minutes.
Okay.
Things like switching your phone's language to English,
Oh, that's interesting.
writing your to-do list or grocery list in English,
Oh, wow.
or even just mentally narrating your day in English can make a big difference over time.
Those are such clever ideas. I'm always looking for ways to sneak in extra practice myself.
Yeah.
I recently started listening to podcasts in English while I'm cooking dinner.
Oh, nice.
And it's amazing how much you can absorb passively. Does the source recommend anything like that?
They do. They specifically mention listening to English podcasts and audiobooks as a great way to improve listening comprehension and vocabulary.
Right.
They also recommend watching movies and TV shows with English subtitles. It's a fun and engaging way to learn new phrases
Yeah,
and get exposed to different accents.
that's true.
And, of course, they emphasize the importance of active practice,
Yeah.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Right.
Things like talking to yourself in English, writing short paragraphs, or joining online language exchange groups
Yeah.
can help you build fluency and confidence.
Okay, those are all fantastic tips. But I know it can be overwhelming to know where to start.
Right.
What about setting goals? The source mentions something about small wins, right?
Exactly. The key is to set realistic and achievable goals.
Okay.
Starting with something small, like learning 3 new words each day,
Yeah.
or having a 5-minute conversation in English,
Mm-hmm.
can make the process much less daunting
Right.
and help you stay motivated.
So it's all about those small, consistent efforts that build up over time, kind of like compound interest, but for language skills. I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to think about it. Consistent effort, even in small doses,
Yeah.
can lead to significant progress in the long run.
That's really encouraging to hear. So we've talked about the benefits of English, the importance of confidence,
Right.
and some practical tips for improvement.
Yep.
What else do we need to cover before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
There's one more crucial point from the source material that I think is important to highlight.
Okay.
We've been discussing how valuable English can be in the job market,
Right.
but it's equally important to remember that it's not the only path to success.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that English is the be-all and end-all of a successful career.
Yeah,
But that's simply not true.
you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
The source emphasizes that you should focus on your strengths and develop your skills in whatever field you're passionate about.
Right.
English can certainly open doors and create opportunities, but it's not the only key to a fulfilling and successful career.
That's such a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's listening to this and feeling discouraged about their current English level?
First of all, I'd say you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Learning a new language takes time and effort,
Right.
and it's perfectly normal to have moments of frustration.
Yeah.
Remember, everyone learns at their own pace,
Right.
and there's no need to compare yourself to others.
That's so important to hear. It's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others
Yeah,
and feeling like you're not progressing fast enough.
right.
But focusing on your own journey and celebrating your own progress, no matter how small, is key to staying motivated.
You've got it.
Yeah.
And don't forget those tips we discussed about building confidence,
Right.
even if your English isn't perfect yet. A positive attitude and a willingness to learn can go a long way in making a positive impression,
Yeah.
especially in professional settings.
And remember, there are countless successful people in all sorts of fields
Yeah,
who don't speak perfect English.
absolutely.
Your skills, your talents, your drive, those are the things that truly matter.
Absolutely. Your unique abilities and passions are what will ultimately make you stand out and succeed.
That's a great point to end on as we move to part 2. We've covered a lot of ground, from the global importance of English to practical tips for improvement.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest takeaway so far is that it's about progress, not perfection.
I agree. It's about recognizing the value of English while also remembering that it's just one tool in your career toolkit.
Okay.
Your passion, your skills, and your dedication to your chosen field are ultimately what will drive your success.
Absolutely. So as we move into part 2 of this deep dive, let's shift gears a bit and talk about you. Of all the practical tips we've discussed so far, which one stood out to you the most?
For me, it was the idea of incorporating English into everyday activities. It's so easy to think you need like these big structured study sessions.
Yeah.
But even small things like changing your phone's language
Right.
can really make a difference.
No, yeah.
It's like you're passively absorbing the language all day without even realizing it.
Totally. I'm with you there. It's those small, consistent habits that can really add up over time.
Yeah,
And it doesn't feel as overwhelming as trying to cram in hours of study every week.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's about making English a natural part of your life
Yeah.
rather than a chore.
Yeah.
Speaking of making it natural, the source also talked about not being afraid to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's such a crucial point, especially for those who might be feeling a bit self-conscious about their English skills. It's easy to get stuck in that perfectionist mindset.
Yeah,
But the truth is, making mistakes is a vital part of learning.
I couldn't agree more. The source even said that employers would rather see someone who's confident and willing to communicate,
Right.
even if they make a few grammatical errors,
Yeah.
than someone who's too afraid to speak up at all.
Right.
It shows a willingness to learn and adapt,
Yeah.
which are super valuable qualities in any job.
Absolutely. It's about focusing on the message you're trying to get across.
Right.
And not getting hung up on the fear of making a mistake.
Yeah.
In fact, the source mentioned that acknowledging your mistakes and being open to learning from them can actually make you a stronger candidate.
Yeah,
It shows humility and a growth mindset.
exactly. And let's not forget, even native English speakers make mistakes sometimes.
Oh, totally.
Language is always evolving,
Yeah,
and there's always something new to learn.
that's true. So what are some other challenges that non-native English speakers might face in the workplace?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is navigating different accents and dialects.
Right.
The source briefly touched on this,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that can trip people up. especially in international work environments.
That's a great point. Even within English-speaking countries, there can be so many different accents and dialects.
Right.
It's like a whole world of variations.
It is. The
Well,
key is to really focus on your listening skills
okay.
and expose yourself to as many different types of English as possible.
Did the source mention any specific ways to do that?
They did. They suggested things like watching movies and TV shows from different English-speaking countries,
Oh, that's good.
listening to podcasts with hosts from various backgrounds,
Okay.
and even joining online language exchange groups
Right.
where you can interact with people from all over the world.
Yeah.
It's all about expanding your ear for the language
Right.
and becoming more comfortable with all the different ways people pronounce and use English.
That's a great reminder that learning English is an ongoing journey.
It is.
It's not just about reaching a certain level of proficiency and then stopping.
Right.
It's about embracing the diversity of the language and constantly challenging yourself to grow.
I completely agree. And speaking of challenges, what about the pressure to sound native-like?
Right.
Do you think that's a realistic goal for most English learners?
Mm-hmm.
And is it even necessary?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's important to differentiate between fluency and native-like proficiency.
Yeah.
Fluency is being able to communicate effectively and confidently in different situations.
Right.
You don't have to sound exactly like a native speaker to be fluent.
I think that's a crucial distinction. The source also emphasized that employers are mainly looking for clear and effective communication skills,
Yeah.
not necessarily a perfect native accent.
Exactly. And trying to erase your own accent or dialect can actually be counterproductive.
Right.
It might make you sound less natural and confident. Instead, focus on speaking clearly, using correct grammar,
Yeah.
and expanding your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that will make you a better communicator, regardless of your accent.
I agree. Your accent is a part of who you are.
Mhm.
It's something to be proud of. It makes your voice unique.
I like that.
The goal is to find that balance between communicating clearly and embracing your own linguistic background.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of embracing your background,
Yeah.
the source also mentioned the importance of cultural understanding in English communication. What are your thoughts on that?
That's so important and something that often gets overlooked. You know, knowing the language is only one part of it.
Right.
To really communicate well in English, you need to be aware of cultural norms, customs,
Right.
even humor. These things can be very different across English-speaking cultures.
No, yeah.
And not being aware of them can lead to misunderstandings or awkward situations.
Absolutely. Especially in professional settings.
Exactly.
That's so true. Like, something that might be considered polite in one culture could be seen as rude in another.
Right.
The source recommended doing some research on the specific cultures you'll be interacting with, whether it's through reading, documentaries, or talking to people from those cultures.
I think that's great advice. The more you understand about the cultures you're communicating with, the more effective and respectful your interactions will be.
Yeah.
And remember, it's a two-way street. Share your own cultural background and experiences as well.
Right.
It can lead to richer and more meaningful communication.
That's a great point. It's all about building bridges and fostering understanding through language and cultural exchange.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what key takeaway would you want listeners to remember about navigating the challenges of using English in the workplace?
I think the most important thing is to remember that it's a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There will be ups and downs, moments of frustration,
Right.
and times when you feel like giving up.
Yeah.
But the key is to keep going. See the challenges as opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
And never stop learning.
That's such an inspiring message, and I think it applies to so much more than just learning English. It's about having a growth mindset and embracing the process of continuous learning and improvement.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up our deep dive into English for career success, I'm curious what's resonating with you most from our conversation so far.
You know, it's really hitting home for me how much the source stresses English being a tool, not a trophy.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in chasing perfect grammar and a native-like accent.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what really matters is how you use your English to reach your goals.
I totally agree. It's about using your language skills to connect with people, share ideas, and make a real contribution in your field.
And it's encouraging to know that you don't need to wait for some, perfect level of English to start benefiting from it in your career.
Right.
Even small improvements can have a big impact.
Absolutely. In fact, the source even pointed out that sometimes just showing A willingness to learn and get better can be more impressive to employers than perfect grammar.
That's a great point. It shows initiative, adaptability, and a dedication to growing, which are super valuable in today's work world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those listening who are ready to take action, what would you say is the most important first step?
I'd say the key thing is to figure out one specific area you want to work on, and then set a small, achievable goal related to that.
Okay.
Maybe it's learning 5 new words every day,
Mm-hmm.
having a short conversation in English once a week, or listening to an English podcast for 15 minutes on your commute.
Oh.
The point is to start small and build momentum from there.
The source also emphasized finding resources and strategies that really work for you. What stood out to you in terms of actionable advice for English learners?
One thing that resonated with me was the idea of making your learning approach personal.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone learns the same way.
Sure.
So it's crucial to experiment and find what works for you.
Yeah.
Some people might love a structured classroom,
Right.
while others might prefer self-studying online or using language exchange apps.
I think that's such a good point to remember to be patient with yourself
Yep.
and not get discouraged if one method doesn't click. There's no magic formula for language learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about finding what works for you and making it a habit.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Right.
Find ways to connect English with your hobbies and interests.
Absolutely.
If you love to cook, try following recipes in English.
Yeah.
If music is your thing, listen to English songs and try to figure out the lyrics.
Yeah.
The more you can link your English learning to things you enjoy, the more engaging and sustainable it'll be.
It makes it more fun, too.
Totally. And before we wrap up, I want to touch on something we talked about earlier, confidence. How can listeners build that essential sense of self-assurance when using their English skills?
Confidence comes from practice and preparation.
Okay.
The more you use your English in real situations,
Mm-hmm.
the more comfortable you'll become. Start by finding low-pressure chances to practice,
Yeah.
like talking to friends or family who speak English,
Right.
joining online language groups, or even recording yourself speaking English
That's a good one.
to pinpoint areas for improvement.
Those are all great ideas. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're actually valuable learning moments. Don't let the fear of messing up stop you from speaking up and joining conversations.
Exactly. Embrace those moments as chances to learn and grow, and celebrate every bit of progress you make. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a win.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd love to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Remember, your journey with English is your own. Embrace the process. Be patient with yourself and never underestimate the power of small, consistent effort. The ability to communicate well in English can open up so many amazing opportunities, both personal and professional. So get out there, take on the challenge, and watch as your world expands.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.
It was great to be here.
We hope you found some real gems in here and are ready to use English to achieve your career goals. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep reaching for your dreams.